Welcome to another episode of You Had Me a Cheese, where my girlfriend, Venus, and myself, Eclipse, explore the many different aspects of the human experience. We are here with our selection of cheeses, and Venus has a glass of wine ready, so feel free to bring your favorite snack and join the party. Hey listener! I am so excited that you've chosen to join us. Today, we're going to embark on our first Hat Roulette episode. To put it simply, we have a hat in front of us, and inside it, a bunch of notes. Each note has a different question. Venus and I will share a little bit about our journeys with immigration and answer questions about culture shock, identity, belonging, and whether or not we see ourselves potentially returning to our country of origin in the future. Stay tuned.
Hi, babe.
Hey, Venus. How are you doing?
I feel really good, and I'm excited about our second episode. And about the topic that we have chosen to talk about today.
What makes you excited about this topic?
Well, we're going to be talking about some of the questions in regards to immigration. And we are both from different country of origin. And I don't know what questions are coming up, and so I'm quite excited.
Do you like being surprised?
I do.
That's good because I like surprising.
Amazing.
Before we start, tell me a little bit about your immigration experience.
Before I answer your question, I want to let our listeners know that we are going to be using a designated fictional name for each of the countries mentioned in our podcast. So the country I come from, we are going to call Camelot.
Tell me a little bit about Camelot and your journey from Camelot to Neverland, which is the country that we currently live in.
So my country of origin, Camelot, is a really beautiful place. Most of the country is coastal, and it has really beautiful sea, really beautiful beaches, really delicious food. It's not too cold, it's not too hot. And sometimes I think about how my life would have gone if we stayed there. So for reference, I came to Neverland with my parents when I was 12. One of their dreams was to create a better life for us, and economically, it made sense to move to Neverland. Also, my mom's family mostly passed away. Her sister is here, and that was another reason why we came.
Thanks for sharing.
Of course. So I shared a little about my country of origin. Tell me a little bit about your country of origin and what immigrating looked like for you.
My country of origin, Middle Earth, is actually a very small country size-wise, but quite big on population in comparison to its size. It's a very stressful country to be in. A lot of people think it's really beautiful. I struggle to see that, maybe because I lived there throughout my entire life until I was 29. And I didn't do much traveling because everything is so stressful and you're too busy trying to survive. But I know that a lot of other people see a lot of beauty in it, and that's great for them. I always wanted to move away. I never felt like I belonged. I think that was something that always followed me, no matter where I was. One vivid memory I have is of someone asking me where I was from when I was 12. And I was very confused because at that point I visited other countries, not many, but I visited a few other countries, and that was in Middle Earth, the country that I lived in until that point. And I wasn't quite sure why he's questioning where I'm from. I guess he could see that I just didn't belong there, and that stuck with me. And throughout my teenage years and my 20s, I always thought about ways to move countries. I always had different ideas, but nothing really stuck because each time I had to focus on survival, on how I can keep myself afloat. At some point, I remember I was planning a trip to another country to visit some friends, and it was supposed to be a trip that was pretty costly. I was saving and saving and saving. And I realized that if I don't take that leap, if I don't figure out how to move countries, I might never be able to because I was getting closer to the end of my 20s.
So moving was something you always wanted to do.
Always.
And you did it by yourself?
Correct.
Wow.
I was actually supposed to move with a friend.
What happened?
He got cold feet and I just went for it. I didn't see any other option. I didn't want to stay. So it wasn't a matter of I have to do it with somebody else. It was a matter of I have to do this, period. And so I moved on my own against my father's wishes. And I guess, that was it, but that wasn't it because so much happens after you move.
For sure. Would you have done it again the same way if things were to repeat?
Not quite. I think I have a lot more knowledge now that would have been useful back then. But you don't know what you don't know, and hindsight is 20/20. So I can sit here all day and say, oh, if I could have a redo, I would do it differently, but I don't have a redo. I'm nearly 40, and that was almost a decade ago. I think when I look back at it, and I see all the logical failures, or the things that I could have done better, that's not what is important to me. What's important to me is the fact that my past self did something really, really challenging to better my future self's life.
I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I can't really imagine doing something like that by myself. In my shoes, I didn't have to worry about these things. I came with my parents. I was a child. And while I used to make some money as a kid, I would sell seashells and things from the sea, like little souvenirs, I would clean them up and make them pretty and stuff like that. And there were a lot of tourists. So I contributed financially just a little bit, but I never had to take the burden and the load that you would have taken to move your whole life to another country by yourself.
I think there are different challenges for each person who immigrates, whether you move as a child or whether you move as an adult, whether you're on your own or with a family. I think as a child, you had no choice. You had no say in it. Your parents are taking on all this admin, but they're also taking all the decision making.
Correct. Looking back at it now, I can say that moving countries at that age was really difficult because I had to make a whole new friends group and the culture is different and people are different and there's a new language involved, which I did know by the time we moved, but there is so much cultural language and the way things are done that you don't know until you live in a different country for a few years.
I also think that the point of reference is different.
For sure.
For example, one of my exes moved to Middle-earth when he was about 8 years old. And while he knew the language perfectly by the point we were together, all the references that were about children's TV shows or pop culture or anything like that were just going over his head.
Yeah.
Which makes complete sense, but that's just a gap that you can't quite undo. Some cultural things you'll pick up here and there, but by the end of it, you were not there as a child. You haven't experienced that country as a child. And so that point of reference is just foreign to you.
Yeah. I still feel like that living here for almost 20 years. There are things I don't know, and someone might make a joke and I don't get it.
Exactly.
Because it's something from their childhood. And even though we had the same age, I wasn't here for it. And it was a period in time that was relevant, and then things moved on.
It can be a bit uncomfortable at times when you're in a group and everybody else gets it, but you don't. But it's just a part of being an immigrant.
Yeah.
So, Venus, I can see a hat in your lap.
That's right. And I'm going to reach in and grab a question for us. Do you think you would have become a different person if you stayed in your country of origin?
100%. I think it's actually reversed. I think I wouldn't have changed as much had I stayed in my country of origin.
What do you think that is? What's on your mind?
First of all, nothing changes if nothing changes.
True.
Your environment stays the same, the people that you're surrounded by stay the same, you're not as exposed to other cultures. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes staying in the same environment can make you a bit stagnant. I also remember feeling that way. I remember feeling like my growth has come to a halt to a certain extent. I'm sure I could have found ways to grow in Middle-earth, but also the reality is that when you're constantly in survival mode, you don't really have that capacity and the energy or time to put into reflection and thinking about what you want to change and what can be improved. And regardless, moving countries changes you.
I totally agree. There is something about experiencing different cultures and language and meeting people from different walks of life where we can grow.
Yes, but I also want to add that it's different when you're traveling. Because I did travel quite a bit before I moved countries. You get exposed to different cultures and different ways of life while traveling, but that's not quite the same. There's something about completely transporting yourself to a different country, speaking a whole other language many times, and being detached from everything that you know. When you do that as a part of a travel, it's just not the same. I feel like you still know that you're going back to the same place, that that's still your identity. But when you move country, your identity starts to shift. Or at least that's what I felt.
Yeah, I would say the same. There is something about rooting yourself in a different country and being there all the time, living in it, that cultivates this growth to be a different person, a change.
What do you think? Do you think you would have been a different person had you stayed in Camelot?
I think the answer is always going to be yes, because you can't be the same person.
True.
I always wonder how differently things would have transpired. Would my trajectory still lead me to the same point, just a different way?
Yeah, it makes me wonder. Do you think you would have gotten to the same conclusion that you want to transition had you stayed there?
It's a very good question, and I don't know. Maybe I would have had a chosen tribe earlier in my life. Maybe I would have had people who I could trust earlier. Maybe I would have met people who would help me understand these feelings that I had, which would have allowed me to come out earlier. Maybe I would have had different partners who would gone with me on journeys to discover myself sexually earlier.
So overall, it seems like the consensus is that perhaps you would have discovered yourself earlier.
I mean, that's what I wish for.
Do you think Camelot is more open-minded though?
I really don't know, because I was so young when we moved, and I haven't really been back there for a very long time. It is different when you're traveling, even if it is back to your country of origin. And so in the end, I think it's just a fantasy that I wish if we have stayed, my life would have been more fruitful sooner. All I know is I would be a different person.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No.
It's just that type of thing changes you, one way or another.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So now you have the hat.
That's correct.
I'm excited to hear what question is coming up.
All right. This question feels like a bit of a follow-up question to our previous one.
Interesting.
How has being an immigrant shaped your identity?
It is a bit of a follow-up question, and I feel like some of my answers or comments for the first question do apply here as well. But Neverland is a country that allowed me to explore hobbies earlier because financially it's actually affordable here. And so I always had an interest in IT and computers, and we couldn't afford that in Camelot. And so that's just one example that my identity changed because I was able to dive into this hobby I really wanted to explore.
Had you stayed in Camelot, you would have potentially been unable to access the technology that you have accessed here, which also enabled you to explore and further your interest and make it into your career. So I would say that moving to Neverland actually shaped you in a very crucial way, from your teenagehood to your adulthood.
I would agree. Who knows where I would be in terms of career if it wasn't for that.
Would you still be selling shellfish on the beach?
Maybe. Who knows?
The best shellfish.
The best.
I think immigrating shaped me into a much more open-minded person. And it's interesting because I did see myself as a very open-minded person when I was living in Middle-earth. It's not that I wasn't open-minded. I was, but especially when you're constantly in survival mode, you get to be quite tense about things and not necessarily be able to just hold space in the way that I think is really important in order to be more flexible. I think I was quite stiff in certain opinions, and the main thing was a lot of how I thought was black and white. That's the thing that was missing for me, the gray. And when I moved to Neverland, even though there was a lot of challenges and a lot of learning and a lot of stress in different ways, life itself here isn't as stressful. And the people around you aren't as stressed. And that makes a really big difference. And it allowed me to take a step back, reflect more, be less aggressive in how I voice things, because in Middle-earth, the way of communication is really, really blunt. It's very upfront, it's very direct, and for people in Neverland, I would say a lot of it would be considered rude. I still value directness, but I think a lot more about how to phrase things in a way that will be more pleasant for the person who is receiving it. I know I've been talking about openness, but I think the most valuable trait that Neverland has helped me acquire is gentleness, because I was as gentle as a tractor in a china shop. I was not gentle, and I know some of my old friends still remember me as that person. And that's actually one of the things that they appreciated about me, that I was so unapologetic. But I care a lot more about people now.
That's really beautiful. It seems like moving here was really a catalyst for a huge change within yourself.
I would say that.
And you became a better person because of it.
I believe so. That's what I always want to do. I want to become a better person, and I think there's always more room for growth.
100%.
We're always work in progress.
Yeah.
Would you like to grab another question?
Okay, here we go. What are some unexpected culture shocks you experienced?
What do you think, Venus? Was there anything that shocked you?
I don't have many things to take away, but one thing I can say that shocked me was food.
Oh no. Tell me.
Some of the condiments that were introduced to me to try when we arrived here were really off-putting.
Don't sugarcoat it.
Sorry, cheese wasn't as good.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Cheese really isn't as good here.
Meat wasn't as good. Bread wasn't as good. And just the food was a shock. Culturally, the way it's eaten and like tradition here was something that I kind of had to get used to. Basically, it came down to the way the food was presented, the lack of flavor, just a different kind of palate. That was mainly the biggest shock to me moving here.
I think one of the shocks for me is more of a logical failure, and it's the fact that most houses have carpet in the dining room and living room, which to me does not make any sense.
That's a really good point.
Before you call me out in the comments, I will explain why it does not make sense to me while acknowledging the fact that to each their own, you know? If you like carpet in your living room and dining room, go for gold. My reasoning for not liking it is because it's harder to clean and it's more likely that we eat in the living room and in the dining room. And then, especially if you had kids, which thank fuck I do not have, but if I had kids, that would be absolute mayhem, and I don't know how people handle it. So to me, just for the sake of efficiency in cleaning, I would rather have tiles or even wooden floors in the dining room and the living room area, and it makes more sense to me.
Same here. I never understood why carpet is used where you eat for the same reason, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are. The funny thing was that as I was preparing to move from Middle-earth to Neverland, a lot of people told me that I would need to bring what I can only call a floor rug. And that's basically a big cloth that is particularly used to mop the floors. It's not a mop, but it's used in the same way. And people kept saying to bring it, and I'm pretty sure I did, only to realize why they don't sell it here. Because you really don't have a lot of tiled floor space. So when I got here, I was a bit confused as to why people kept saying that I needed to bring it.
Interesting.
But you live and you learn. And so I never brought it again.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Eclipse, it's your turn to ask the next question. Ruffle it up for us.
All right. Oh boy. This one is a good one.
I'm ready.
Would you ever consider moving back? Why or why not?
That's a really good question.
Would you consider going back?
If the economy was better.
I'm sorry, you can't have it all.
So while it is a beautiful country and it will be nice to live there and experience the delicious food, the beautiful beaches, the location in the proximity to other countries, I think it's just too tough to live there as comfortably as we live here.
Mm.
So to answer the question, it's maybe. I would need to really be reassured in that move. And definitely there will be some big perks.
Such as?
I think mainly the travel.
Yeah.
And experiencing the cultures that the country is surrounded by.
That would be nice.
Yeah. I didn't really give an answer.
I guess maybe is an answer.
I guess. Who knows? What about you, Eclipse? Would you ever consider going back?
Respectfully, hell no. I will never go back for anything more than a visit. That's it. The truth is that since I moved to Neverland almost 10 years ago, it has gotten increasingly harder for me to simply cope with being in Middle-earth. I think I was more immune to it when I lived there, but nowadays my skin is a lot more delicate, and all the things that bothered me before bother me 10 times more now. And I just don't feel good. I just don't feel good there.
That's fair.
I love my friends. I love parts of my family. I miss them. It hurts me that I can't be close to them when something happens, but I never ever want to go back. And I know that some people view this as betraying my country of origin, and honestly, they're welcome to hold on to their views, but in my eyes, I will always be the most important thing.
Yeah.
I will prioritize my well-being above whether this is betraying my country of origin or not.
Yeah.
So at least I have a clear answer.
Yes, you do.
Would you like to go ahead and pull another question?
I would. Here we go. Are you ready?
I am ready and waiting.
What do you miss the most from your country of origin?
Some of the people. There are certain people that I really miss. But then again, I have friends in other countries and friends who passed away, and I miss a lot of people in this world or out of this world. I miss some of the food too. I miss the directness sometimes because it was easier to know what people think because they literally just told you. Granted, a lot of times I did not want to know what they think, nor did I care, but they told me anyway. But sometimes when you find yourself needing to encourage something and almost baby somebody into telling you something that they need to say for whatever reason, it feels like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
So in moments like that, when you know something is wrong, but the person you're engaging with is just very reluctant to share it with you, I just wish directness was more encouraged and common.
Yeah. Me too.
Because I can't solve a problem without knowing what it is.
Yeah.
And contrary to popular belief, I am not a mind reader. So I do need somebody else to tell me what's wrong.
I'm with you. And I do think sometimes you are a mind reader. I think you're very good at picking up cues. But directness is still something that we should all practice more with gentleness.
I agree.
We actually had an incident with someone who was born in Neverland and told us it's part of the culture to be passive aggressive, which shocked me.
Actually, yeah, that's a good answer to that question about the biggest culture shock that you've had here.
Good point. Didn't really think of that until now.
Yeah, I think we were both too traumatized by being told that passive aggressiveness is a part of the culture. And it was also presented in a way that we were supposed to just accept it.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, thanks.
What about you? What do you miss?
I think I miss connections the most. Again, being a kid is a different time in your life. There are certain things that are nostalgic, I would say. But the biggest thing that I miss is connections with friends and family that I had back then. I just remember a time where me and my parents were almost always surrounded by somebody. Either we went to see somebody came to see us. We had big parties for birthdays and Christmas and New Year's, and it just felt very lively. And I haven't had that since.
Yeah. The culture here is very different around things like that. I remember when I first moved into a flatting situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned to my flatmate at the time, who was also the owner of the property, that I wanted to have a few people over. And he asked me, how many is a few? And I said, 5 or 6. And he said, 5 people is almost a party. And I was like, in what world? Because in my book, up to a few months prior, I would have 10, 15 people on my balcony for dinner. And that is not considered a party at all.
Yeah, I feel you. That's something I miss the most, I would say. And since moving here, we really grew out of touch. And it's just a shame. It is hard to find people like that here. But hey, maybe one day we'll have food parties. And
I'm keen.
I'll help cook, okay?
When you say you'll help cook, do you mean you will cook?
I will be in the kitchen.
Okay. I might help.
Okay. You'll be my sous chef.
Sure. I'm happy to do that.
Eclipse, it's your turn to choose the next question.
All right. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Our last question for today's episode is, do you feel like you belong more to your country of origin or to the country you live in?
Very good question.
Do you have a very good answer?
I am not sure. I do remember once we moved to Neverland, I had a view of my country where I wasn't interested. I made a comment once to my dad that not long after we came here, I was with my dad out and about, and I remember making a comment about Camelot, which was negative. And he was quite annoyed with me in a way of, don't talk down on your country of origin. And so I kind of felt in this weird space where I didn't belong in either. And fast forward to 20 years later, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I belong. I would say I belong here more, only because life is comfortable. I am healthy. I'm doing well. It's treating me well. And for now, this is where I'll be. But I'm not sure I feel like I actually belong in this country or Camelot.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not sure how to answer. And I feel in between the two countries. Maybe one day when we move elsewhere, I will feel more at home there. Who knows? But for now, I think it's your turn.
I think for me, the answer is neither. I don't feel like I belong in Middle Earth, and the truth is that I never did. But I also don't feel like I belong here. I would say that I'm too close to the culture in Middle Earth for people in Neverland, and I'm too close to the culture in Neverland for the people in Middle Earth. And so I'm neither here nor there. And everyone is unhappy with the result. Apart from me. I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yes, you are.
So I think I'm still in a similar position to where I was when I lived in Middle Earth in terms of lacking a sense of belonging. But in myself, I am a lot more connected to how I choose to live my life and how I choose to interact with others.
Before we close today's episode, did you learn anything new about yourself or me?
I learned that connection is more important to you than food.
Oh my goodness.
And that's actually really surprising to me. Okay, I'm half joking. But I thought you were about to say food.
I miss the food. Don't get me wrong. It's such a big part of what I enjoy in life.
I understand that. And I mean, connection is super important. I guess I just feel like I've been fortunate to have quite a few good connections here.
Definitely. And that's so great to see.
Thank you. Did you learn anything about yourself or me?
I learned that I still think about what life would have been have I stayed there and grew up there. And
you still play What If?
Yeah.
That's fair. It was a big change that you didn't actually have a say in.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great here. But I do think about the things that I did lack and would I have lacked the same things. It's a thought experiment.
We have reached the end of our episode and hope you have enjoyed your snack as well as our conversation. If you liked our podcast, we would truly love for you to leave a comment, rate our show, and share it with anyone who would benefit from our conversations. And if you didn't like our podcast, then don't worry about it.